from my home in Alexandria, Virginia. Due to COVID-19, we're actually not allowed to go into our office. So I am conducting this workshop from my home, as you can see from the background. And first of all, I want to say thanks to Allison and Katie for setting this up and putting this together. We greatly appreciate this. And so I just wanted to let you know in terms of who we are, the Federal Voting Assistance Program, or FVAP. So our duty, our role, is to help US citizens with voting from anywhere in the world. And this includes military members, their family members, and US citizens that live overseas. And our job is of an assistance role. We don't hold elections. We don't hold voter rolls. You know, if you call us up and ask, am I registered? We can't tell you. We don't hold any personal information. Our job is to assist. We also come up with federal forms that people can use from any state or US territory. So that's our role at the Federal Voting Assistance Program. And just so you know, I did receive the questions that you sent over with your registration. I read them, and a lot of the questions are very similar. So in this situation, what I'm going to be doing is, as I go along in the presentation, I will be addressing these questions that you had. Now, I'm not going to address them directly, so I'm not going to reread your question because we had many questions come in. Otherwise, we'd be here for 5 hours. But what I'm going to be doing is making sure that I address all of your concerns. So I will be going over all the points you need to know to successfully register to vote and get your absentee ballot and send it back and vote and have your vote counted. So I'll be covering that. I will also be covering residency. I know it's one of the number one questions we get, so I will be handling that too. And with that said, if you can hold off your questions until actually I get to the slide that pertains to them. So I'm going to be going over slide by slide, and as I do it, at the end of each slide, I'm going to be going over your questions that relate to that slide. Because otherwise, like I said, we have a lot of questions that came in, a lot of questions keep coming in. So to make sure I don't miss any questions, it would be best for everybody if your questions pertain to that particular slide. And at the end of the presentation, if you find that you didn't understand something or your question still wasn't answered, we will allow for additional time at the end to address anything else that you don't think I addressed or you didn't understand. So I will get to your questions. Just be patient with us. Like I said, there's a lot of people online, so I will try and get to everybody's question. And with that said, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. Okay, let me put this in presentation mode. And bring up the chat. Okay.
I will just make a quick thing, Sarah. For any of you that are watching, at the bottom of your screen, you can hit chat again. There's a chat button, and that will pop up your chat function so that you can be sending in questions.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, for that reminder. All right, so let's start. All right, so please stay muted. Like Katie said, type your questions in the chat box. And then at the end of the workshop, if you could please fill out the post-workshop evaluation. It was sent over before, but I know Allison will be sending that out again afterwards, just reminding you. And we do really appreciate you filling out these evaluations, because we do need to send these results over to Congress, because that's how they evaluate us, the Federal Voting Assistance Program, making sure we're doing a good job at these workshops. So your input is very important. These surveys are also anonymous, so we won't know who you are. So if you can please take these, it will be very helpful for us at FVAP. All right, so first of all, I'm going to be going over the voting process, the absentee voting process for overseas citizens. So this is going to be a very brief overview. I know a lot of you have questions regarding all these moving parts that are in here, but just give me a chance to go over the basic process from start to finish, and then I'll be addressing specific questions on residency afterwards. Okay, so citizen. Now this is different from registering to vote if you're living in the US. If you're living in the US, you go through the process where when you get your license, you go to the maybe the DMV and register to vote there, or go through your election office. But when you're an overseas citizen, you're not able to do that. So what you need to do is fill out what's called a federal postcard application. And I will be going over that application in great detail in the next upcoming slides. You fill this out, you sign it, and you have to send it directly to your local election office in your state. And this is typically going to be your last state of residence, and your local election office is typically the last county that you lived at in that state, or city or township, depending on how your state divides up their voting jurisdictions. And then after you send in your federal postcard application to your election office, you need to follow up with them, make sure that they processed it. And just so you know, there's no legal requirements for states to tell you if they accepted or processed your application, which means it's up to you, the voter, to call them, to email them, or to check on their verification website to make sure that your data is in there, it's correct, and that you will be getting a ballot. So this is up to you as a voter to make sure that they process your application. Like I said, they're not required to send you a postcard saying that you're registered or anything of that nature. So it's up to you to contact them. And I know some of you had questions saying, hey, I tried to contact them, they didn't answer. What you need to do is email them also, keep calling them, try different numbers. And worst case scenario, if you exhausted your attempts to contact them, you can send us an email at the Federal Voting Assistance Program with with your attempts, showing that you at least tried to email them, and we can contact them for you. But we need to make sure you actually made your attempts to do that, because like I said, we don't keep voter rolls, we don't process registration forms, so they're the only ones who can verify whether they've received your form or not, or whether you're still registered, or whether you need to re-register. So just so you know, the federal postcard application, legally it's good up to 1 year. Some states allow the form to be used for multiple years. For example, I think New York, it's 10 years. But all that information can be found out with your local election office, but it is good for at least a year. So if you register to vote in the primaries and you received your ballot in the primaries, everything went well, you will be receiving your ballot for the November election. Obviously, if you want to double check, I recommend that. You can always go to your state's verification website and check with them. And then after you make sure that it's been processed, everything looks good, 45 days before the election, they will send you your ballot. So you should be getting your ballots by September 19th. What happens if September 19th comes and goes? You don't receive your ballot. If that's the case, you can go ahead and send in what's called a federal write-in absentee ballot, which you can find on our website. This is referred to as the backup ballot. So you fill it out, you sign it, you send it into your local election office, and they would count that instead of your official ballot. So that's going to be a backup option. Now, what happens if you receive your ballot after you've already sent in your federal write-in absentee ballot? Well, you want to go ahead and fill in your ballot and send it in also. What happens is they'll discard your federal write-in absentee ballot, and they'll go ahead and they'll accept your official ballot, and they'll count your official ballot. So you won't be voting twice. So just keep this in mind, that this will be your backup. So in the event that you don't get your ballot by September 19th, you can fill out the federal write-in absentee ballot, and your states will have to accept it. And they will let you know if there's something wrong. For example, if you forgot to sign it, they'll let you know. And the same with your federal postcard application. If you did something wrong on your form, or they need to know more information, they will contact you, because they are required by law. If something's wrong and they don't process your form, they have to contact you if they reject it. They don't have to contact you if they accept it. It's only if they reject it. So keep that in mind. And then, so say you get your ballot, all is good. Go ahead, you need to sign it, send it back. So in terms of how to send back forms, whether it be your FPCA, which is a federal postcard application, your ballot, your federal write-in absentee ballot, all states accept these in different forms. So some states only accept these by mail only, other states accept these by email or fax, and some by online portal. So in order to find out how your state accepts them, you can consult our voting assistance guide, which is also on our website. and it will tell you exactly how your state accepts these. And you can always contact your local election office too, if you like. With that said, I'm just going to go over and look at the chat to see if there's any questions regarding what I just explained here real quick. Okay, so this is a pretty good question. It's a little bit, hold on, let me just see here. A lot of questions already came in, so please bear with me. Okay, so this is one here. I have been in Canada for over 30 years, but have not voted in the past. I have lived in Los Angeles, California. I signed my FVAP application and forwarded to California office, but no response. Nobody answers their phone. So I'm not sure whether I will receive an absentee ballot or not. How can I confirm that my request for absentee ballot has been received? So in your case, I recommend that you go to California's registration verification website, and you can actually find the link on our website, which I'll show you where to go during the presentation. So check there. If you're in the system, it means your information is correct. It means you will be receiving a ballot, like I said, by September 19th. If you're not in the system, then you need to continue to try and contact them. I recommend emailing them also. Their email information is also on our website under the local election. We have a link, you can find your local election official information, and try other numbers. So sometimes if you just do a web search, for example, County of Los Angeles elections, a lot of times you will get multiple numbers for different offices too. So like I said, the only way you can find out whether you're registered or not is by going directly to your state and your local election official, because they're the only ones that will know. And like I said, if you still have problems and you've exhausted all attempts trying to contact a live person, contact us at the Federal Voting Assistance Program, send us an email and list your attempts, like in terms of, yes, I've called them, I've emailed them, this is the email I sent, and we will try and contact them for you. That's last resort though, because like I said, we don't keep voter rolls, so we're just going to try and, get this for you. But at the end of the day, they're the only ones who can tell you whether you're registered or not. Let me see what else. Okay, I submitted an FVAP request form for a ballot from Pennsylvania. They have to recognize me as being allowed to vote there. Are there any guidelines that follow for a timely response to my request? So I'm assuming you mean the federal postcard application, the FPCA. Like I mentioned before, make sure you contact them directly and ask them if they received it or not, and if everything looks good. Okay, hi there. I am trying to register to vote in the US for the first time, but I'm not sure if I'm eligible. Here's my situation. Born in Canada, have never permanently established in the US. Although I have lived and worked in Maine for months at a time during the summer, I obtained citizenship through my grandmother, so neither my parents nor any legal guardians have ever lived in the US. My grandmother lives in New Hampshire, so could I potentially use her address to register? Okay, so no states actually recognize grandparents when it comes to voting. So you have a couple options here. The first is if you've lived and worked in Maine and you consider yourself actually living there and being a resident in Maine at the time, then you should be using your last residence address in Maine. And I'll be going over residency a little bit later. But the thing is, your local election office doesn't send anything to your old address. So even if you lived at an Airbnb, you can still use that as a residence address, as long as it's not a business. It can't be a PO box. It has to be an actual residency, whether it be an Airbnb, a hotel, whatever. Another thing is, I mean, if you want, you can try and use your grandmother's connection with New Hampshire, but I can't guarantee that, and because there's no law stating that they have to honor never resided through grandparents. It's only parents. So in that case, you can try and send your FPCA to them, but in your case, you might actually be able to qualify for Maine. So like I said, you send into your local election office. It's up to them to accept you or reject you. And if you feel that you're a resident in Maine, then you would use Maine. Okay, let me see what else is here. Thank you for bearing with me, everybody. Please address security concerns in media today. So we can't address that because we don't deal with security. So in terms of election security, you need to contact your local election office, because elections are held by the local elections are held at the state level. The federal government does not hold elections. We can't even advise states on how they do elections. So you need to contact your election official regarding any security concerns. Hi, I sent my FVAP application form to my election office by email, but then in the 10-minute video we were supposed to watch before this webinar, it said my state, which I registered since I live in Canada, doesn't allow by email. Do I continue waiting for my absentee ballot? So like I said, contact your local election office. If they accepted your form and they said you're good to go in your process, then no, you should be good to go. So, but if they say no, you need to mail it to us, then go ahead and mail it. And I definitely recommend you go to our online assistance guide, because that's where you're going to get the answers that you need. But at the end of the day, it's up to the local election office to accept or reject forms. So whatever they say goes, basically. And then another person, does this FPCA need to be done every voting year? Like I explained in the slide, yes, because there's a lot of states that need this to be done every year, but some states don't. Like I said, to find out if your state allows this to be kept more than a year, you need to contact them and ask them. But federally, like in terms of federal law, they only need to keep it for 1 year for elections for that year. So, so yeah, it depends on your state, really. Okay. Yeah, another person said they're not having a response either, and they're in Texas. And like I said, the same thing. Keep trying. Don't getting a response. Send us an email showing your email communications that at least you tried to get a response, and then we can try and follow up with you. And another one, ballots become available September 19th, but keep in mind for those states that you have to mail in your absentee ballot, you won't get it for what, 2 weeks more, use the FWAB. So just to let you know, when you apply for when you use the federal postcard application to get your ballot, you have the option of getting your ballot emailed to you. So if you're concerned about mail, just choose the email option, and states, they have a federal mandate to email you your ballot. So if you're, like I said, concerned about mail, get your ballot by email. So that way, come September 19th, you will have your ballot in hand. You can print it out and send it in. And if you're concerned that your ballot won't get there if you mail it on September 19th, you can send in the FWAB. You can send the FWAB right now if you want. Your local election office has to accept it. And they, and if you have issues with that, if they say they can't accept the FWAB this early, then contact us, because by federal law, they have to accept the FWAB if it comes in early. So go ahead and do that if you have issues with mail. And then if you receive your ballot in time, you can go ahead and send that in also, and they'll just disregard your FWAB that you already sent. And that's your option to do. And just remember, some states also accept the ballot by email and fax too. So if your state has those options and you're worried about mail, then use those. You can also use private courier services too, if that's your preference, such as DHL, FedEx, UPS, or whatever is offered in your area. I've always lived in Canada. My father last lived in Miami, Florida. Florida doesn't say they can accept me as other states. So can I vote in Florida, or what are my options? So this is a great question. If you come from a state that doesn't allow people to never reside, then your options are the following. So first, you should send in your federal postcard application anyway, and then it's up to your state to accept or reject you. And then if they reject you, your option after that would be to contact your local congressperson and let them know of your situation. Other than that, there's nothing else you can do. That's a state law question. So only that your state can help you with that. Are we going to receive our ballot in mail or email? What happens if I'm moving next month and the ballots gets lost in the mail? So like I mentioned, the federal postcard application, which I'm going to be going over in the next slide. So you have an option to get your ballot by email. If you want your ballot by email, you have to choose this option on the form and send it in. If you're not sure what option you chose, you need to send in another FPCA, because there's contact your local election office. But in order to request your ballot by email, you have to send in the form. And another person said, yeah, you also said if you're moving, it gets lost in the mail. Well, in that case, If you're moving, definitely request it by email. And if you haven't done so yet, I recommend you do it now. Oh, you're doing a great job. Thank you. All right, let's see. Just to let you know, I'm gonna go to the next slide because I noticed a lot of the questions are related to they're related to residency, which I am going to be covering. Okay, so I'll get back to everybody's questions. All right, so federal postcard application. This is where I'm going to be addressing a lot of the questions that have been coming in. Okay, so this is the official form that you're going to use to register to vote, request a ballot, or change your information, such as if you need to change your mailing address, you want to indicate a preference of how to get your ballot. If you want to change your political party, any of those changes, this is the form you're going to use. It's a multi-purpose form. So section 1, you need to choose a classification. Who are you? So in the case of overseas citizens, you're going to choose one of the last 3 options. So the first is, I am a U.S. citizen living outside the country. I intend to return. After that is, I'm a U.S. citizen living out the country, and my intent to return is uncertain. So this goes for people that are well established in their country that really don't know if they'll ever move back to the U.S. They need to choose that option. And the last is, I'm a U.S. citizen living outside the country, and I have never lived in the United States. So by never living in the United States, this does not include people that were born in the United States. So if you were born in the U.S. in a hospital and your parents, took you to Canada as soon as you're born, you're still considered to have resided in the United States. In terms of the address you would use, you could even use the hospital address if needed. But like say, you're born in the hospital, you went to live in an apartment, a house for a few months, a year, you'd use that apartment address or that house. So if that's the case, you do not choose the option for never resided. You would choose either option 2 or 3 of that form. And okay. And then after that, your social security number. So some states require the full number, some states don't require it at all, some states require the last 4. So to know how your state accepts this form, you have to consult our voting assistance guide, and it will tell you. Driver's license, state ID, you do not need to have a valid driver's license or state ID to complete this form. And if it's expired, do not put it on this form. Just remember that. In terms of your names, make sure that these names match whatever you have on your legal documents. Like whether it be your ID or so forth, or your passport. And then section 2, what is your residence, what is your address in the US, state, or territory? This is what's called your voting residence address. This is typically the last place that you lived in the US. Like I said, there could be nuances here too. For example, say you last lived in Idaho, but since you moved to Canada, you've been going back and forth to New York because that's where your parents are, and you ended up even getting a New York driver's license, or maybe you didn't, but you feel like your new residency is actually New York, and you want, hey, I want to use my parents' address in New York because I feel that's where my residence is now. I'm like, okay, then use New York. So it's really up to the voter to decide where their residence address is. Nobody can really decide this for you but yourself as a voter, and it's going to be whatever address that you can you feel confident in defending in front of the government, that's saying, hey, this is my voting residence. And your local election office doesn't send anything to your voting residence. They just use this to determine what ballot to send you. So don't worry about anything going to this address. It will not, okay? And then section 3, where are you now? This section, you have to have an address that's overseas. So, and this is where you put your address in Canada. You cannot use a PO box in the US here, because if you do, they're gonna think you're not really in Canada, and they're gonna go ahead and reject your form. So it must be an address in Canada. Now, if you get your mail in New York and or elsewhere, and you wanna put a PO box down, you'd put that under the mail forwarding address section, which is also under 3. But the your mailing address has to be your address in Canada. All right, and then number 4, what is your contact information? It's very important that you put this down and it's accurate, because your local election office will need to know where to send your information, where to send your ballot. They have to know how to contact you if there's issues with your form. So it's very important that you put this information in here. And then you have number 5, what are your preferences in terms of how do you want to receive your ballot? So if you want your ballot emailed to you, choose the email option. If you don't choose anything here, they'll mail it to you by default. Political party for primary elections. So remember, this is for primary elections, not for the general. So if you don't care about the primary elections and you just want to vote November, then you can leave it blank. That's fine. It's up to you. But if you want to make sure you get a ballot for primaries, put your party in there. Number 6, this section is only in the case where you need to put additional information. For example, in section 2, if you're not sure what your address was back in the US when you lived there, say, hey, it's been 40 years, I have no clue. I only remember the town, the city, or, you know, I don't really remember the street number. This is where you need to put that information and say, hey, I don't remember it. It's been a long time. So any explanation you need to give in terms of why your information is lacking or you're missing something, this is where you put it. Or if there's if you remember that you used to live near a landmark, such as a school or something, put that in this section. Say, I can't remember my street number, but I remember it was near this park or something. That's for section 6. And it's the same if you, yeah, so put anything additional in section 6. And the same if you don't have a social security number. That's where you put, in section 6, you put, I don't have a social security number. So that information goes there. And then afterwards, you want to make sure you sign the form, you date it, and you send it directly to your local election office. So a lot of times I get people saying, hey, I went to the FVAP website and I filled it out and I don't know what happened to it. I'm like, well, if you didn't physically print out the form, sign it, and send it to your election office, your form went nowhere. It disappeared. All the information you put, it just went nowhere because our website doesn't save information. So unless you perform those last steps, you did not register to vote or request an absentee ballot. So you have to send this form in and it has to be signed. You cannot use electronic signatures. It has to be printed out, signed with a wet signature and sent. They will not accept electronic signatures. All right, so before I move on, I'm just gonna look at the questions that came in. There's quite a few, so everybody please be patient with me. Okay. All right. I'm just trying to see where I left off, so please be patient. Okay, like others, I've lived in Canada for many years. My last known address was in New Jersey. I filled FVAP in late June 2020, as you directed. I checked with the New Jersey Division of Elections to check registration. The search did not find me with a registration effective date of July 20th, 2020. Can I presume this means as my application is approved? So you're saying that did not find me. I don't know. I would say in your case, check with your local election office directly, call them or email them if you're not understanding their system. Yeah, because I don't know. You definitely need to contact them there just to make sure. And if you're not in the system, then you will need to send in another federal postcard application and make sure they get it. Okay, similarly, is it better to request your ballot by mail, email, or fax? I have all these options for Colorado. So just so you know, all states are required to send you your ballot by email or fax if you request it. All states have these options. So yes, if you prefer your ballot by email or fax, then request it by email or fax. It's up to you. It's your preference. Yeah. Next one, not all states will email your blank ballot. That's not true. Every state will email you your blank ballot if you use our form to request it. If you're using state forms, no. The difference between our form and state forms, or what we'd use in, like, say, a state registration portal, is that theirs are designed for domestic voters. They're not designed for overseas voters. So when registering to vote, request a ballot, you need to use the federal postcard application. If you use this form, then legally they have to send you your ballot by email if you choose the email option on the form. So if you come across a situation they tell you no, contact us and we can look into it for you. But you had to have sent this form in. If not, then, you know, yeah, we can't help you. You have to make sure that you send this in. And then, okay, let's see. Will putting the completed ballot into the consulate mail guarantee the state will get the ballot? Okay, so I'm going to be, okay, so in terms of consulate mail, when you're using diplomatic mail, you go ahead and you drop it off at your consulate or embassy. Then approximately once a week, they'll make a trip to the US and they will, or, you know, all their mail, depending on where it's at. But in Canada, a lot of them actually take the trip to the US. They drop it off at a US postal box or you know, the post office. And then it gets into the normal USPS mail stream. And then from there, it gets sent to your local election office. So as long as you do everything correctly in terms of you have the postage paid indicia on your envelope, which you can get from our website, we have the templates for them, or you have US stamps, as long as you have those and you have the correct address, it will get to your local election office. But if you don't, you can't just put in a regular envelope though with no postage. So I'll talk in terms of the postage paid indicia. Like I said, those are on our website. I can show you in a little bit how to find those too. Okay, where can I find this FPCA? I will be showing this shortly in the next slide. My county auditor never heard of the FPCA. She appears to be fine in dealing by phone, as I already made contact in person in the past. She already said that I did not need to send her anything annually. Well, if your county auditor sends you what you need, she sends you the ballot, then you're fine. As long as you get the ballot and you vote, that's fine. I'm kind of surprised she never heard of us, but you know, it happens where local election officials sometimes don't deal with a large volume of overseas citizens or military voters. That could happen. But in the case where you get a local election official that's unaware of us or the forms, just contact us and we can go, we'll help this out for you. We'll help you out in order to get it resolved. Even if we have to go through the state election official. So if you counter any problems, please just send us an email with all the information and the details and we will look into it for you. Okay. I found they send to that voting address. How can I stop that? So they should never send anything to your address in part 2. If they do, then you need to let them know. But yeah, they should never send anything to the old address. So even though they have, yeah. Okay. I'm registered as in New York and I email application to my local election office and they replied that my form is good even though I heard New York doesn't allow email. Okay, so one thing that we just found out with New York is because of COVID-19, they are now they stopped rejecting FPCAs that come in by email or fax. So in the state of New York, yes, you're supposed to mail it in, but if you email or fax it to them and you don't mail it, they will not reject it and they still will send you your ballot. And this is something new and it's only, and I heard it's also just temporary for this coming election. So this is actually a very new thing. So yes, you can go ahead and do that for New York now, but they still want you to mail it with your ballot. So you send in your FPCA by email, fax, and then they send your ballot. When you mail your ballot back, include a copy of your FPCA in there and send that in also with your ballot. In the case you forget to include your FPCA, that's okay too with New York. But yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so I tried to apply to New York 2 years ago over email and they never responded to emails with attachments, only to emails without attachments, say there is no attachment. I mailed in my FPCA yesterday, so hope it goes through this time. So yeah, like I said, contact your local election office, keep contacting them. If you have trouble, let us know, send us an email detailing your communications with them and we'll try and help you to actually get a response. And also check your verification websites because the states actually, most states do a very good job of keeping these updated. And so definitely check that because that will have your information on there if they've processed your form. Say, do any states accept the federal postcard application by email? Yes, the majority of states do accept it by email. To find out if your state does or not, you check our voting assistance guide. Go to the state page and it will tell you exactly how they will accept it. Next, if I'm trying to establish residency in Maine, since I worked and lived at a camp for 2.5 months, do I choose the option I have lived in the US and I am uncertain I will return, or do I say I've never lived in the US? So yeah, if you want to claim that Maine is your residency, then no, you would not choose the last option. You would choose option 2 or 3, saying that, you know, I intend to return or my intent to return is uncertain. Very good question. Next, I'm a dual citizen living in the US. I will be going to Canada this week to help my parents. I may not be back by the elections. What is the best option for me to vote? So yeah, so once you get to Canada, you should fill out the federal postgrad application, send it to your local election office. If this is happening out. However, if you're not leaving until maybe mid-October, then in that case, you might want to contact your election office and see if you can do early voting. Some states offer this, some states don't. If they don't offer it, or if you're leaving too early before they allow early voting, then definitely send in your federal postcard application. Your voting residence address will be your last residence address in the US, even if you intend to return to that address. And in section 3, you would put down, you know, your address where you'd be living in Canada. And the same thing, you can request your ballot by email if you're not sure where you're going to be living. Okay, so another one. I'm the person that sent the instant message above that stated, like others, I've lived in Canada for many years. My instant messenger said that I checked the Division of Elections site for my state and the search did find me. So can I assume this means my application is approved? Yeah, if the system, if the website says that you're in there and you're registered, then yes, you should be getting your ballot within 45 days. And the same thing, if you don't get your ballot by September 19th, contact your local election office, and you can also send in your federal write-in absentee ballot, or the FWAB. And so yeah, and another thing is, if you're not sure whether you're registered or not and you want to send in a FWAB, you should also send in an FPCA with your FWAB too, because many states don't allow people to use the FWAB to also register to vote and request a ballot. So to be safe, you should be sending in both your FPCA and your FWAB at the same time if you're not sure if you've been registered to vote or not, or if your application wasn't accepted. Just take a note to that. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. These are great questions. Oh, okay, I just had a couple more come in. Okay, I've spoken to them about sending to the voting address, and they said they can't handle foreign mailing address. That's not true. So they legally have to mail your ballot to a foreign address if you request it, if you use our form. If you use the federal postgrad application, they have to mail it to your address in section 3. If they are denying that or say they can't, please send us their email and we will look into it for you. They could just not know, you know, the laws regarding, you know, voting from overseas, but yes, they are legally required to send it to that address that you indicate in section 3. Just make sure that you didn't mix up section 2 with section 3. That's very important. Okay. Okay, so my mailing address in Canada has changed. It is now different from what I wrote on my FPCA. I contacted my Board of Elections in the States, and they told me that they were just going to send me my ballot via email. They told me that there is no need to change the address because they will not send anything to that address. Can you confirm, do I need to change it? It's up to you. If your local election office is fine with it and they said, yes, we're going to email it to you, then I guess you're fine. I mean, to play it safe, you could always send in another FPCA, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to be sending it to you. They're the ones who have to process it. So as long as you maintain good communication with your local election office, you should be fine. Okay. All right. If my absentee ballot does not come in the mail, I will have to submit a FWAB. But I read that I'm waiving my right to a secret ballot. Is this correct? I have no other choice but to submit a FWAB, and I have to do the same when the next election nominations. So, so when you send a FWAB, you can send it in by, depending on your state. Some states accept it by email or fax. If you're sending it by email or fax, then yes, you're waiving your right to a secret ballot. However, if you're mailing in your FWAB, no, you're not. So when you send in the FWAB, which I will also talk about here, you're going to be sending it in 2 envelopes. So the ballot itself, you're going to put it in an envelope and write secret envelope, secret ballot on there. You're going to take that, put it in a larger envelope, which will also include the first page of the FWAB with all of your information, and you're going to be mailing that to your local election. If you do it that way, it will remain secret. Okay. All right. Okay. Can we replay the webinar? I see it recording on the top left corner. Yes, we will be recording this, and Allison will send out instructions later in terms of if you can see it again and all that. So we definitely will address that after. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So this is our website. If you don't remember anything today, at least remember our website, which is fvap.gov, because this has a lot of resources, a lot of information. This is where you're going to be going for all of your needs in terms of, you know, the guide, getting the form, any envelope templates you need. So when it comes to the FPCA, there's a couple ways where you can access it, a few ways where you can access it on our website. So the first is you can just hit that red button that says request your ballot now. That will take you right to our online assistant, which will help you to fill out the form step by step. Another place you can go is on the top, it's a little hard to see, it's where it says election forms and materials. If you click on that, that's where you can access a PDF version of the form. So that way you don't have to go through an online assistant. And election forms and materials, you also find the envelopes there too. So if you want an envelope because you want to send it through your consulate or your embassy, that's where you go for your envelopes. And then another thing is, another place you can go is under here where it says looking for something specific, select your state too. You can see your state's voting guidelines, election dates, find your election office, check the status of your ballot. So you just go ahead and you go select your state, and this will take you to your state page, which you'll see here. So this is just New York as an example. And so here you'll see you have step 1, step 2. So step 1 is the FPCA if you wanted to access it here. And next step 2 is this is only if you want to fill out a FWAB, if you didn't get your ballot in time. And then you also see the election deadlines on for your state. Remember, all states are different, so make sure that you send in your FPCA in time and your ballot in time. And then another section I want to show you is called State Voting Guidelines, which is the second option under downloadable PDF. So your state voting guidelines is, I recommend you look at this when you fill out your FPCA. It will take you section by section telling you how your state requires you to fill out this form. So it's very important you take a look at your state voting guidelines. And in your state voting guidelines, you'll also find all the information for your election officials too, and where to send the forms. Sorry about that, I skipped ahead. And then at the last option, it says find your local election official. So this is very important. This will give you the telephone number, the email address, and the mailing address for your local election office. So make sure that you know this information. All right. And then let me just see. Okay. So just to let you know, we will be posting these slides later. We'll actually be posting the workshop later. It will be also on their social media, so it will be posted. Thank you, Katie. All right, so I want to show you this one page. This is what I was talking about in terms of checking on your voter registration status. So when you're on our website, FVAP.gov, on the top, very top corner on the right-hand side, there's an option called links, which is next to contact. If you click on links, it will take you to this page. So if you want to check to see if you're registered to vote, I mean, say your state's New York again, just go ahead, click on New York, and it will take you to New York's voter registration verification website. You enter your information, and it'll be able to show you where you're at. Okay, I'm just going to look back at the chat. There's another question here. For when you get to FWABs, can FPCA and FWABs be mailed from inside the US, or must they have a foreign postmark? And can FWABs be mailed before September 19th? And one more, what if your LEO, which is local election official, never heard of a FWAB? How do we know they will process something they never heard of? Okay, so there's a few questions in here. I'll unpack them. The first, can FPCAs and FWABs be mailed from inside the US, or must they have a foreign postmark? The answer is the FPCA and FWABs must be mailed from outside the US. If they're mailed from inside the US, they might not be accepted. They could be rejected. So just keep that in mind that yes, you're supposed to be sending these from outside the US. And if you have concerns about this, about it being rejected, you need to contact your local election office. Sometimes they might make exceptions. Sometimes they may not. So only they can tell you whether they'll accept it if you try and mail it from in the US. Can FWABs be mailed before September 19th? Yes, they can be mailed before September 19th, and your state will have to accept them. And like I said, in the case that they send out your ballot, you send your ballot back, they'll just go ahead and discard your FWAB and count your official ballot. So yes, you can send them today if you really wanted to. Your state will have to accept them. And if they tell you you don't, you can contact us and we can look into it for you. But yes, they have to accept them. Also, what if your LEO never heard of your FWAB? So if your local election official never heard of it, contact us, have them contact us. They should have heard of it. If not, then we can educate them, or their state election official can contact them and explain it to them. But yes, the FWAB is an actual federal form and they have to accept it. How do we know when they process something they never heard of? You need to contact them. After you send in your FWAB or your ballot, contact them, make sure they received it. And a lot of the state's verification websites will tell you if they received your ballot or your FWAB. So if you go on there, you click on there, they might give you that information. And if it doesn't, then call or email your local election office. Make sure they got it. Make sure they counted your ballot. It's a very important thing that people should do, just in case, you know, it doesn't hurt. I voted 4 years ago and did not have all this information. So thank you for doing this. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So I'm just going to continue here. So this is the FWAB. So the first page of the FWAB is going to look exactly like the FPCA is. So you're going to fill out all your information again. Some states actually allow you to use the FWAB to also register to vote and request an absentee ballot, but other states don't. Therefore, so when you fill out this form, we want to make sure that you consult our voting assistance guide, the same way you did for your FPCA. Make sure that you're doing everything that your state wants you to do. And it'll also tell you whether your state will accept this form to also register to vote and request your ballot. So this is the ballot page itself. So just to let you know, when you use our online assistant, only federal offices will show up. So any local or state offices will not be on the form. So if you want to vote in state and local elections, you will need to look those up on your state website or your county website or wherever you vote, and you can get the candidates from there. And then you would just have to physically type those in. So that's how the FWAB works. Okay. Now, Allison was very gracious to actually gather up this information for all of you. So if you want, if you want to send your ballot through diplomatic mail or diplomatic pouch through your embassy or consulate, these are the addresses and the times they'll be available to receive them. And just remember, if you are dropping them off, they must be in the they must have the postage paid in DSHA, which is on our website under the it's the registration form section, which I showed you. And if you have difficulty finding the envelopes, please contact us and we'll show you how to find that or send you the link. So just make sure they're in those special envelopes if you plan on dropping these off in person. So if you want, you can go ahead and take a screenshot now of this or, yeah. Okay. All right. So that concludes my presentation. And if you have any additional questions, please go ahead and type them in now. Okay, so I do have a comment here. Due to the possible concerns with the U.S. mail system, can we send our mail-in ballot via FedEx or another type of delivery service? Great question. Yes, you can. So as long as you're not sending it the last week, then yes. And the reason I say this is some states actually require a postmark by, for example, if it comes on election day. If you get it in before, if you get in early, if you send it in right now or in October, you should be fine. But if you're sending it last minute, just be aware that if it doesn't have a postmark that like by election day, or if it comes after election day, then yeah, they might not count it. So if you are using, yes, you can use private courier, but make sure that you get it in earlier rather than later if you do. So that way the election official won't have to rely on looking at a postmark to check if it came in on time. So yeah, as long as you send it in, you know, send it in early as possible, you're good to go. Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna read some more questions that came in. DISHA, I'm not sure what that is. So if you want, you could write again saying what you mean by DISHA. What's the state's website again? I didn't quite get that. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys. I just want to show you how to get some information. How are we doing on time? Okay, so we still have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up another window. Okay, so this is our website right here. All right, so you asked about the state websites. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to pick a state. I'm just going to pick, say, California this time. Click on California. And here is the California page. So I can go to FPCA here. I can start my FWAB. I have the deadlines for California. I can download a PDF if I want of the form. State voting guidelines. So the state voting guidelines is, like I said, it's very important you take a look at these. These will take you step by step through the form. So FPCA, it tells you exactly what you need for California, for example. So you go through it step by step, making sure you have everything. And then here it says how to send, how and where to submit your FPCA. If you're voting in California and you're using it to register to vote, you must mail or fax the form. So I just wanted to bring up something else. If your state allows fax, whether it be for an FPCA or ballot, and you don't have access to a fax machine, if you want, you can email it to us at fax@fvap.gov, and we can actually fax it for you. So you'd send it to us in a PDF document or a JPEG or some type of attachment where it's clear, and we will send it to us at fax@fvap.gov, and we will go ahead and fax it for you. However, it also says that if you're already registered to vote and you're using the FPCA to request your ballot, then you can mail, email, or fax it. So if you're already registered to vote, go ahead and email them directly. Don't send it to us. So if you're from a state that accepts the FPCA by email, do not send it to us. Send it directly to your local election office. Voted ballot return. So in California, they accept the absentee ballot by mail or fax. Which means that, yeah, the same thing. If you don't have access to a fax machine, email it to us at fax@fvap.gov and we'll fax it for you. And with the FWAB, the same thing. They give instructions, and the same thing. You can send it by mail or fax. And then at the bottom of every state page, you're going to have all of the election offices for that state. So all of them will be here. And this is where you can get their information. And there's another spot for their information, which I'll show you. We have a section called Quick Links. The third well, you can also get to the state voting guidelines through Quick Links here, or you can get to your local election official information by clicking here, and then you just go ahead and enter, say I want to go back to California, you know, I'm in Contra Costa County, and there you go. Their information comes up.
You want to just note, I don't think we're seeing your screen. We are just seeing your frozen slides.
Oh, yikes. Okay. Sorry about that.
Everybody.
So are you seeing them now, or?
No, I'm not.
Are you seeing just the slides?
Just seeing the slides.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop share and then share again. How's that? Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, here we go. I think I got it. Do you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Great. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back over it again real quick. So this is our website, FVAP.gov. I want to go to my state page. I want to check out, like I said, I was going to go California. All right, here it is. So you can access the FPCA from here also, and also the FWAB. Step 1 is FPCA, step 2 is the FWAB. And like I said, the FWAB is only used if you don't receive your ballot in time. So you don't have to send in a FWAB. And then I want to go to my state voting guidelines. I just click here. And this takes me to all the step-by-step processes that I need to do to fill out, say, the FPCA, where to submit it, how to send in my ballot, how to send in my FWAB, and all the election offices for California. Okay. And then I want to go and show you how to get the election office information from a different spot too, if you need the information quickly. So there's a section called Quick Links. Go to the third option, locate your election official, and just, just choose wherever jurisdiction you're at. Say, let's just go to Florida now. I want to, I don't know, I want to go to Collier County, and their information will come up. So this is how you find their contact information. All right, and then another spot I want to show you is the election forms and materials. This is where you can find a PDF downloadable copy of the FPCA. You just click on download the FPCA here, and it will take you to the form itself in a PDF format. So if you find this easier to do, then do it this way. Okay. All right, and then I also want to show you, you can get the FWAB, and this is where you get your envelopes too that I was talking about. So if you wanted to send your FWAB or your ballot through through the embassy or consulate, this is where you would actually go to get your envelope template. And so you would need to go ahead and print this on an envelope. And in the case where you're not able to print it on an envelope for whatever reason, you can print this on a regular piece of paper and you can tape it onto a large envelope. Just make sure that all sides are completely taped so that way it doesn't get stuck in the postal sorting machines. So just keep that in mind. And this is the postage paid indicia that I was talking about. So without this or without US postage, do not send it through your local consulate or embassy. But you can also just send it regular mail if you want. Regular international mail, you can send it private courier, so you don't have to send it through your embassy or consulate. And like I mentioned before, a lot of states accept FPCAs, and some even accept ballots by email and fax. So those are other options you have. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to the comments section and to see if I have any other new comments in the chat. Okay. All right, sorry if you said this, but is there a way to know the date when we should accept to receive our ballots by email? Does this vary by state? So states have the deadline of September 19th to email this to you. They can send it before, but they must at least send it by September 19th. And yeah, it varies by state, obviously, and by local election office, but by law, they have to get it out by September 19th. That's the deadline. This is only for mailing it. Yeah, so another thing is you don't need the envelope if you're not mailing it. So if you plan on sending out your FPCA by email or fax, there's no need to send an envelope, obviously, with your email or fax. There's no need to. Okay. So another thing is I just want to point out that if you have any questions later on, or if I didn't address your questions today, then please contact us. This is our contact page right here. And we have toll-free numbers. We have our email, vote@fvap.gov. And so yeah, our information is here. So please don't hesitate to contact us. And yeah, so another person, yeah, so fax@fvap.gov is the email. If you want us to fax us, if you want for us to fax your FPCA or ballot for you, if you're in a state that accepts it by fax but not by email. Do we receive our ballot by email as well if we emailed our form? No, you only receive your ballot by email if you check the box for email on your form. If you did not check the box for email, you'll be getting your ballot by mail by default. Okay. Send completed ballot to you by email to fax. So yes, so The only time that you should be using our fax service is if your state does not accept your ballot by email, but they accept it by fax. So if your state accepts your ballot by fax, and it's typically like California and Florida are the two biggest ones that for overseas citizens, then yes, email it to us at fax@fvap.gov, and we will go ahead and we will fax it for you. Correct. Okay. So we're pretty good on time. Oh, another question. So then we don't check our email for the ballot. We check our physical mail. So then it depends. If you requested to have your ballot sent to you by mail, or if you didn't check any of the boxes on the form, then they will be sending it to you by mail. And if you want them to send it to you by email, you have to send an FPCA. So even if you've already registered to vote and requested your ballot, if all of a sudden you decide you want them to email your ballot, then you have to send them a new FPCA. Or you can call them and ask them if they'll do it without it, but I can't guarantee they will. All right, so we're a little past 3 now. Do I have any other questions or? All right, so like I said, if anything else comes up, please contact us. Our call center is open from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And you can always email us at any time. All right, so I guess that concludes our presentation.
Yeah, Sarah, this is Allison. I just wanted to jump in and just to thank you for doing this. Thank you on behalf of the Montreal Consulate and our consulates and embassy in Canada. We're really grateful that you were able to make the time to do this and appreciate your expertise. Like we said, we will post links on our website to this for people who requested that, and also so you can share it with your friends and family and other people who might want this information. And again, the website is FVAP.gov. As Sarah demonstrated, it's really easy to use, and they have also a phone number if you'd prefer to contact them that way for questions. But please look through their resources. They're very detailed, and they do go state by state as she showed us. So thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who joined today.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Thank you.